Hey there, Parker Reed here, and welcome back to PR Media, your home for everything movies and music through my eyes. Now today is going to be the first entry in a new series I'm going to call Discography Ranked, where I take a look at a band's entire history and rank all their albums from worst to best. And today we're going to start off with a really heavy hitter, both musically and as far as popularity goes, that is Metallica. Now Metallica is a very varied discography. They have really great albums and really not so great albums. We're going to take a look at all those and everything in between. And to start things out at number 10, we have Saint Anger. Yeah, I don't even really need to say that much about this thing that has, because everything that's been said about it is accurate, and there's pretty much everything's been said. The instrumentation sounds like trash, the guitars are hollow, the drums sound like trash cans he got outside of a grocery store and just started banging on. It's not good. The songwriting is terrible. The entire recording process was a nightmare. They even made a documentary about it, about the band almost breaking up because of it. It is not a good record, and there's a reason they don't really play anything from it anymore, because it's not very good. Saint Anger, it's the worst Metallica record. Coming in at number 9, we have 2008's Death Magnetic. Now, Death Magnetic has some really good cuts on it. I really love All Nightmare Long, Cyanide, The Day That Never Comes. There's some very good ideas on it, but overall it was just derivative of other stuff that they've done. There wasn't a lot of new material brought to the table here. And the production on it, kind of like Saint Anger, is not good. It's not as bad as Saint Anger, because there aren't very many records that are as bad as Saint Anger as far as how they sound. But it's very flat. It doesn't sound fantastic. All their other releases have their very own unique style and sound, and I really like them. But Death Magnetic just doesn't hit the same way. Overall, it was a weak output. I think it was more of an excuse to go on tour longer. But there are some decent cuts, and it's one that's worth returning to if you're a big Metallica fan. Any person who hasn't been really swayed either way, this album's not going to persuade you to be a Metallica fan. Coming in at number 8, we have Load. This was the follow-up to the Black Album, one of the greatest metal albums of all time and the biggest metal crossover ever. Load is okay. Load is okay. You have songs like King Nothing on this record that are still heavy hitters. Overall, I think that Load and Reload could have been one amazing record, but they split it up and kind of watered down both entries, and Load is my least favorite of the two. It's okay. It was them trying to be a little bit too grungy. They cut off all their hair. It was really trendy, and it's really dated the record as far as I'm concerned. But it's still a solid entry in the Metallica discography. And if you just cut out a bunch of songs from it and cut out a bunch of songs from Reload, you'll really enjoy that era of Metallica. At number 7, we have Hardwired to Self-Destruct. This is everything that Death Magnetic and Saint Anger should have been into Metallica 2000's discography. This record is really great. I really enjoy this record. This single, Moth into Flame, I think that's the best song that they've written since Reload and almost since the Black Album. That song is really great. The title track is fantastic. Overall, this record is solid. It's a bit long-winded though. Coming in at over an hour and kind of been divided into 2 discs on the CD and vinyl versions, it's a bit long, and every Metallica record since the Black Album has been almost an hour long. If they would have cut out a few of the filler songs, maybe like a Confusion, you can cut that song out. You don't really need to hear that one. I think this record would have been all the better for it, because tracks like Atlas Rise, they really stand out and show how great Metallica is at coming up with new ideas, and they can still put out modern sounding records that stand above their competition. And Hardwired to Self-Destruct, really solid record. Doesn't compare to the other albums on this list, but it's still a great modern Metallica record, and I'm excited to see what they come up with next. At number 6, we have Reload. Now, I think Reload has a few better songs on it than Load does. Songs like Fuel, Give Me Fuel, Give Me Fire. That's a modern staple and a live staple for sure. That's a great song. Overall, I don't love Load and Reload, but of the 2 albums, I think it's the better one. I think this has a few better cuts on it than Hardwired to Self-Destruct does. That's why I put it above it. But of all these records I've listed before, none of them compared to everything from the Black Album onward and before. So that's kind of where all these albums don't really separate themselves much from each other besides Saint Anger, which is still trash in my opinion. But I think Reload is a solid record. It's just not one I return to very often, because the first 5 records on the last 5 records on this list and the first 5 records Metallica ever did just stand above the competition. Coming in at number 5, we have the first record from Metallica, their phenomenal debut. That's 1981's Kill 'Em All. Kill 'Em All is a fantastic, raw sounding record. They really wore their influences on their sleeve for this record. Bands like Diamond Head and Motorhead really are shown on this record. And songs like Whiplash, Jump in the Fire, Seek and Destroy, Hit the Lights are still fantastic live songs and still great cuts to this day. Now where this album falters, which is kind of a common theme of Metallica, is the production. Obviously we didn't know they were going to be the biggest metal band of all time at that time, so they didn't have every resource in the world available to them. So it sounds a bit raw, a bit rough around the edges, but that adds to the angst. And also on this album, this is the only record in which James Hetfield, the lead vocalist, has this really high scream, and it's really adds to their youthful vibe of this album. Obviously they refined their style going forward after this, and there's no big ballads or slower songs on this album, but it's fantastic at the least, and it shows the great bass playing of the fallen Cliff Burton on the song Anesthesia Pulling Teeth, which, sorry Rob, you don't pull it off, and Jason didn't really either back in the day. It just shows how great of a talent he was. And overall, this album is solid and I really like it. It's one of the best debut albums of all time. Metallica's Kill 'Em All comes at number 5 on my list. Coming in at number 4 on my Metallica Discography Ranked video, it is Metallica's 1988 release, And Justice for All. Now, of almost every Metallica record, this one has had almost the most drama associated with it. Of course, the glaring problem with this album was
the lack of bass.
And it should be called And Justice for Bass. They should do a remastered and remixed version where they add bass guitar, because Jason Newsted joined the band for this album and they wanted to kind of put him in his place, because they didn't want him to just think he could waltz in and replace the great Cliff Burton after he passed away on the Master of Puppets tour. So they mixed his bass so low you can barely hear it, and that really, it kind of gives the album a vibe, a different kind of vibe than the rest of the records, but I don't know if that's in a good or bad way. And the guitars sound really,
I don't know. There's not a lot of oomph to them, not a lot of low end, and that might be because of the lack of bass, but
the songwriting in this record really just brings it above and kind of shines past all that stuff. Songs like One, Eye of the Beholder, Harvester of Sorrow, and the opening track, Blackened, are fantastic. It really shows they were at the peak of thrash metal at the time. The title track is one of the most epic songs in Metallica's entire discography. If you saw the movie that they did a few years back called Through the Never, that was a fantastic entry in that concert, because just how epic of a song that is. Overall, I think And Justice for All, people kind of discount it nowadays because of the whole production issue and the drama surrounding that. But I think it's one of Metallica's best albums, and better than their debut album. Coming in at number 3, we have Metallica's 1991 record, the Black Album, or just as it was called, Metallica. Now I can see all the thrash metal purists. Yes, I'll keep you at bay. I understand your gripes with this album. All the songs were shorter, they were better prepared for pop radio, but there's a reason it's the biggest metal crossover of all time. There's a reason it almost sells 1 million physical copies a year. That's because it's one of the best records in heavy metal history. Songs like Enter Sandman, Sad But True, Holier Than Thou, Wherever I May Roam, the list goes on. I mean, Nothing Else Matters, The Unforgiven. What do you want from this album? There is a reason it's held in such high regard. It's to the point. It's succinct. It's nearly flawless. There's a few songs where they just it's a bit too heavy riff rock for me, and it just doesn't compare to the rest of the record. But I think this album is nearly flawless. The Black Album, like And Justice for All, gets a bad rap as far as the perception in the heavy metal scene goes, but it's fantastic, and it's one of the albums I return to the most from Metallica. Coming in at number 2 on my Discography Ranked series for Metallica is the 1986 release, Master of Puppets. Now, these last 2 records on this list are almost interchangeable for me, but what puts Master of Puppets at this spot on the list is just the fantastic songwriting. And Metallica back in the 80s was on a tear as far as songwriting goes. Songs like Battery, Welcome Home Sanitarium, and the title track Master of Puppets are some of my favorite songs in Metallica's entire discography, and there's a reason that they still play them live almost every concert. They're fast, they're intense, and the production of this record is epic as hell. This record is, there's a reason you can go to like an Urban Outfitters or a Kohl's or a Target and find a Master Puppet shirt. It's crossed over into the mainstream to such an extent that it's just synonymous with heavy metal music and fashion and style. And overall, I think Master Puppets is a great record, but it's not my number one Metallica album. I'll tell you what my number one is, and you'll see why I put it number one. Coming in number one on my Metallica Discography Rank series is their 1984 record, Ride the Lightning. Ride the Lightning is a near perfect, no, I don't think anything's perfect, a near perfect heavy metal record. The production on this thing is bombastic, it's unique, it's purely Metallica. All the instrumentation sounds like it's being played in a stadium. Creeping Death, I think, is the best Metallica song ever written. The outro part with the chanting and the guitar solo and the opening riff, it's heavy as hell. And songs like Fade to Black really show the diversity in songwriting that Metallica was offering at this point in their career. I mean, you just chalk up everything associated with this record. I mean, the cover art is iconic, just like Master Puppets. You could probably go to Target and buy a Ride the Lightning shirt. I know some of my friends have in the past. And songs like For Whom the Bell Tolls have dominated rock and metal radio for over 30 years now. Ride the Lightning I think stands above every other album in their discography. I know a lot of people will say Master Puppets is their favorite album, and I would not blame you for that. Master Puppets is phenomenal as well. But songs like the title track from Ride the Lightning are just the pure, unfiltered version of heavy music. And this is the album I return to the most from them. I think it's their best record, and it's number one on my Metallica Discography Ranks series. Thank you so much for watching Metallica's Discography Ranked video on PR Media. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this, leave a comment, subscribe if you feel so inclined, and thank you so much for watching. And remember, keep supporting physical media. See you next time.